Why is this guy's head in the trash?
He rolled down the stairs.
Total Badass in Boston? Question marks. It says, Chad Holt and Bob Ray here. We have a movie playing in Boston tomorrow night, but aren't here to promote it.
We made it to Augusta. What am I doing with the car?
Our special guest for the evening, Mr. Bob Ray, whom the New York Times just described as a working poor man's cross between Frederick Wiseman and Hunter S. Thompson.
Director Bob Ray.
Yay!
I just want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. Me and this guy over here, Chad Holt, are touring around, showing off movies.
Made it to Baltimore.
Brooklyn, New York. We're in Atlanta, Georgia. We want to discuss filmmaking with Boston film fans, as well as discuss the fact that we're looking for places to crash out the next 2 nights.
We're in Roswell, New Mexico. We just rolled in. We have artists and girls and artsy girls just fucking dying to have us come say they're not.
Made it to New Orleans.
I got like 3.5 pounds of weed here. 2.5 pounds of QPs, pound of ounces. So the guinea pig's gonna be selling my dope all month.
Should have been doing this all along.
I'd like to introduce Chad Holt.
Soft underbelly. Fuck yeah. $10 bill. Golden man. Bam! Making money already. I found my second butthole of the trip.
Hi. We're free.
That was a quick freak police.
Hey, pick it up. Time, Bob. All they said though is, do you spit or swallow?
The dog, cat, mouse.
That's all they asked.
Greensboro, Oregon.
She has like the wettest pussy. Everyone loves that. Ever.
We're in Tucson. No, wait.
This place is haunted.
That might be a compliment on you.
Oh, fucking Hollywood, goddamn motherfucker.
Got arrested.
Had a good last night. 2 people came in the movie. It rained all night. And then we went to fix the car. And then the cops came.
Well, pretty good in Boston. Pretty good, Boston.
Yeah.
Total badass!
It's just funny. I'll tell you about it later.
It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too. It's been like 15
Ages.
years, right? Yeah.
No.
Now, how's it? We've seen each other since.
Well, I'm just thinking.
rerun in
I
New
was
York
just thinking maybe a couple of like visits
Film
to.
festival. Yeah.
Yeah, like I ran into you, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't satisfying, or.
There were no cops and fire marshals called, so.
So are you referring to rerun?
Yeah, rerun. Good times.
Yeah. So I guess that's where, right? Okay, so we'll just assume we're starting this thing,
All right.
and then, but I don't really do it like where I all of a sudden I change the way I talk or anything.
Oh, okay. You got a
Mhm.
nice deep voice going there.
Oh, well, I'm on the radio now for a while, so maybe it's just become a some sort of way I've developed of slowing myself down.
I think that because I do public speaking too, and I talk so
Yeah.
fast that I have to slow myself down to where I think I feel like I have some sort of brain damage. I'm talking so slow is how it feels.
And then but nobody else has that experience, of course, because
No.
you're just so used to being. Yeah, I remember that kind of part of the way you talked and communicated.
Especially for a Texan, not known for fast talking.
It's true. So wait, all right, so we're gonna talk about you have is it a screening or theatrical like that you're gonna have coming up at this theater, which I will remind myself of.
Hyper real.
At the Hyper.
So there's
Real.
it's newish sort of. A few years ago, this group in Austin started screening like kind of off the beaten path movies and other just fun movies in bars and things. And they were calling it Hyper Real Film Club.
Right.
And
Right.
they were really catching on, and they were writing about it, and they were doing film criticism and stuff, and like kind of creating a culture. And a lot of the places that they would do screenings were in East Austin, bars and venues. And they eventually got their own place now in East Austin on Chicon Street.
What a great
And
story.
it's a cool little story, and it's a fun vibe, you know, a lot of 80s sort of style aesthetics, just real kind of bright and nutty. And they do events like they had, you know, Macon Blair went in there and screened, you know,
Sure.
some of his movies, and Patton Oswalt was just there.
Oh,
But
wow.
it's a lot like Rerun was, if anybody's familiar with Rerun. It was just a little micro cinema, and I
Mm-hmm.
think Rerun was all like van seats, like pulled out of the back of a Honda Odyssey or something, was the seating thing. And so
Yeah,
Hyperreal
right,
kind of
right,
has
right.
this.
That's right.
So who knows the history of the things that happened on those van seats, either in Rerun or prior to. But Hyperreal really got this momentum going, and it's just a fun, cool place. They do weird stuff, and it's like I think it seats 50 or something, so it's not a
Oh,
ridiculously
wow.
large venue.
Right.
Because you can have 100 people in a 1,200 seat theater, and it feels like a
Right.
cave, you know.
Well, you know, it creates an energy, right, or it doesn't, and you can't really create that kind of great energy when you're in this huge space,
Yeah,
you know, with that kind of number. But you can. You're exactly right. I mean, it's so they're so Hyperreal. This is in Austin, right? Did you?
yeah, it's here in
Okay.
Austin, and I haven't screened there before. I've been to screenings there, but I've often screened at the Alamo Draft House. Like they
Hmm.
like what I do. Austin Film Society has a wonderful cinema,
Right.
but I kind of thought, since Total Badass is about this guy who was sort of kind of a king of the underground counterculture scene for 15 years, and he's since passed on, and we could talk about that because
Hmm.
people, who the hell are you talking about? Um, and these guys, the Hyperreal seems to be sort of in touch with the more contemporary version of that scene, you know.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I think it'd be interesting if we could try to bridge the gap and just go like, hey y'all, here's the weirdo, the reigning weirdo from 15 years ago, you know, for those interested in some Austin lore. And so hopefully we
Right.
can kind of get that kind of fun party vibe going and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like part of you is um, really wants to keep Chad's memory alive too, on a personal level.
Yeah, well, you know, we met when we were in our 20s, uh, living sort of west of University of Texas campus, kind of north of downtown. And he shows up at my house with a bong, like a big 2 foot yellow bong and a bag of weed. And I
Right.
was like, all right, who's this motherfucker? And then, pardon my
Well,
French.
wait,
And
he
then,
showed up at your house, but you invited him, right? Ostensibly.
what? No, well, my door was open, so I guess that's a Texas invite if your door is open.
Right.
It was like little apartments, you know. So he just goes, hey, what's going on? He's like from East Texas, so he's got this drawl. He's like, hey, I'm your neighbor Chad. Hey,
Oh, nice.
and smoked us all out. Me and Toe was my roommate. And then the other little weird thing, this is part of Chad's story too, so I'm not trying to go blue right off the bat, but this conversation will get blue.
Hmm.
So we're smoking, and the bathroom's upstairs. So I'm up there doing a number one, taking a leak, and I didn't close the door because the bathroom's upstairs. You know, like everyone's
Yeah.
downstairs. And I hear like thud 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 come up the stairs. And I'm like, I look over and Chad like pokes his head in and like just like leans in and looks at my penis. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing, dude? Get out of here. I like shoo him away. And he's like, oh yeah, you'll be okay. You'll be all right. You're doing okay. I was like, what
Yeah.
the dude? I just met you like a little while ago. I don't need you like giving me a cough and turn your head to the side exam. What I found out later is, and what you'll know if you know of Chad, his name's Chad Holt.
Right.
And if you know of him or see Total Badass, one of among his most prized possession is his giant penis.
Hmm.
And the movie's not about his penis, but it's definitely part of his identity.
It's a
And
supporting role. It's a supporting.
like a kickstand, it's a supporting
It's a
role, you know.
supporting. It's his kickstand, but it's also yeah, it plays a supporting role.
But it's
I
it's
remember
it's
that.
part of his identity too, you know, in a funny, fun kind of way. He's not like this, you know, chauvinistic asshole, you know, treats people poorly. He's a really kind, nice dude. But I didn't know what that meant. Later, I realized what he was doing is he wanted to make sure that someone didn't move in right next door to him with a bigger penis.
Got it. So
Yeah, I was like,
there was
what?
he did have a competitive side though.
Oh, totally, totally. And
Right.
honestly, uh, so like I was the hub of a bunch of South Austin weirdos that were now like hanging out at my place. And Chad was next door, and he had a whole herd of people from Lake Jackson, this town outside of Houston, that had sort of migrated with him to Austin. And so he had his little group, and I had my group, and there's a lot of overlap in our interests in the music scene and in,
Hmm.
just like creating some sort of weird counterculture vibe and having parties and events and writing. And so he was kind of the hub of his, and I was the hub of mine. And there was a competitive, we would both freely admit this. There was a competitive nature to our relationship, a friendly one that, like, we both encouraged one another and wanted to outdo one another. And
Hmm.
so it's nice having, if you're of a certain mindset, I appreciate that kind of relationship, because when I feeling lazy or unmotivated, it's like, oh yeah, okay, I can't let that be. I got to do something better now. And so, in that regard, it was great. He was in my first feature film. Like, so he shows up, brings a quarter pound of weed. This is the mid 90s. So
Hmm.
weed in Texas generally was like a compressed brick of really terrible Mexican weed that I don't know if they soaked it in mule urine to mask the smell, but that's what it smelled like formaldehyde kind of real just
Right.
crappy swag. And so he was selling weed out of there, and then so that was like people were coming and going all the time. It was just a really fun, chaotic scene. And then when I made my first feature film, I was trying to figure out it was a narrative. I do documentaries more now than narratives, but I sort of took an inventory of what my paint, if I was an artist, what my paint color choices were. What are the materials
Hmm.
I have to work with here? And Chad and my other friends and bands were among them. So Chad played a weed dealer. I've had him in a few movies here and there over the years. And then yeah, I ended up making a documentary of him. And then we sat in a car for 11 weeks driving all over the country. So if you can ride if you can spend 11 weeks in a vehicle with somebody and not want to murder each other, that's a pretty good friendship. And
I'd
not
say
only did
so.
we
Hmm.
not want to murder each other, we had a really good time. Like it was sort of a time of our lives event, you
Hmm.
know, like just such a huge undertaking, and so fulfilling just to see the country, to meet people everywhere, to go to these places. And some of the screenings were terrible and some were wonderful. So it was just a really cool, neat sort of thing to have happen in your life.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe the competitive part kind of, in a way, uh, decreased a bit because you're the filmmaker, he's the subject. So there's like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, there
There,
was
yeah.
he does not want to give over control though. This is the interesting thing too, is so he printed his own magazine. Before that, he was a
Right.
columnist, and these were like zines. These were like underground zines. They were printed, they weren't like stapled together. It wasn't that low rent. But when he was writing before he launched his own magazine, he was writing for another one, and he wouldn't let anyone edit his stuff. Like content editing, hell no. He wouldn't
Mm.
even let you copy edit, like that's how protective he was of his stuff. So when we started making a movie together, I think it was difficult for him to sort of relinquish some of that control that he had typically had when you're a writer and you're not beholden to an editor or a publisher. And so, but he also, because we talked about this a lot, like we film for the series Odyssey, we filmed Q&As, and there's not a lot in the finished product because who wants to sit through that? But it's interesting from a filmmaking point of view to see the subject talk about his role in a documentary, and then if like I don't know how much it comes through in the series, but just being on the road with him to watch him do the first Q&As and talk about it, and then watch his perspective change over the evolution of the screenings as he saw it more and he saw more people interact and react with it. And you start to notice things as you do when you watch a movie multiple times. You start to notice things that maybe you didn't catch on the first time. And so he stood by the movie, even though it wasn't always flattering to him.
Hmm.
But his writing was the same. His writing often was always really funny. but it often would be of a story that was wild and crazy that you're just like your jaw's a little on the floor, like I can't believe this story happened. And then I think most people would had the story Chad is writing about happen to them. I think a lot of times most people would not tell other people about it. They'd be like,
Right.
that
Yeah.
does not paint me in a flattering light. But that was kind of the great part about it, is that whether it was flattering to Chad or not flattering to Chad, he would write about it in a funny and humorous way with some kind of weird insight into the human condition. But as he went on through the screenings, like he would point out, he's like, he said something like, all that stuff in the movie happened to me. It's just not really the way it happened.
Mm.
Which
Hmm.
there's some truth to, as a documentary filmmaker, your, in my opinion, your obligation is to distill the truth. And through that distillation process, you can't include everything. So you have to make subjective decisions to try to
Right.
get to a version of the truth. And I try to keep it, I like verite, so I try to keep it like it feels real, but there's still stuff that, like this is redundant of that. And this piece of information really should have been over here. And how do you deal with that? To keep it
Hmm.
so you can streamline down to a story that people can hang on to and enjoy without having this scattershot approach. And so he's right. He did all of that happen. It just not necessarily like timelines are distilled, they're just or rather shortened, for the you can't have you could have a 10-hour movie, but not sure nobody would have screened it. We wouldn't have had a tour with a 10-hour movie.
Yeah. Well, let's go. And I think, just so people know, like I met you, I think, I'm assuming in Austin and South by Southwest. Because by the time you showed it, the documentary about Chad, by the time you showed it at Rerun, which was in Dumbo, Brooklyn, at what was a micro cinema when it existed, and then it was sort of an interactive evening, so to speak.
Oh man, yeah. You want
But
go ahead.
yeah, no, I was just going to say he did the getting in the garbage pail, right?
Yeah. So part of
Z-
his, I guess it was a commentary on art. Uh, he was in several bands over the years, just sort of punk rock metal, loud, rowdy bands.
Of course.
And one of them, I think it was Front Butt, where he would stick a couple Nerf footballs in the front of his pants and create like a butt there on the front.
Oh, right.
And he would dress up like Terminator or a guy from Falling Down, that movie
Hmm.
Falling Down, or just whoever,
Michael
Captain
Douglas.
America or whatever. He'd dress up like different characters. And then he would get like a big gray trash can you find at a bar, and he would jump off the stage into it and do flips into it and just get himself beat up. Man, it was like his
Yeah.
elbow was all swollen and there'd be pus
Yeah.
in there and
Right.
stuff.
Right.
And
It was
it was just
Jackass before Jackass, possibly.
totally. And I would be at his show. I'd go to those shows all the time, and I would, obviously it's like this is wild and funny, but there's part of you that's like, I sure hope he doesn't break his neck.
Right.
And his sister was often there, just like with a look of shock and horror on her face, just or worry. She was more worried than anybody that Chad would break his neck,
Yeah, of
most
course.
likely. But so then he was in another band after that. And so for the movie, that I kind of put those bands together. That was one of the sort of, like there's no real point in focusing on one band and another band. It's like bands. He's in bands. That was the
Hmm.
point of that part of the story. So I kind of merged those two. But by the time the screening came around, um, it was a big deal. Aaron Hillis, he's in the cinema scene, like writes about stuff, introduces movies, hosts things. He was running Rerun, and it was really nice that he booked us there because he booked us for a week long run in New York City, which is a huge deal. Obviously, no matter where you're screening, it's a big deal. It qualifies you for a write up in the New York Times, which obviously would be
At
a
the time,
huge
it did.
deal too. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know what the current landscape is.
No, it changed, but fortunately, well after you
Yeah.
showed it. Yeah.
So we got a great write up there. We got like a quarter, maybe less than a quarter page, but more than an eighth, like a big picture of Chad and a trash can in there. And so that was nice of Aaron to do that. But Aaron also, I guess, told Chad that he was promoting that Chad was going to do a stunt. And Chad was like, okay. He
Oh,
just sort
that's
of said,
right.
okay. And then Chad he says it on camera. It's in the series too. He's like, I never said I would do a stunt. Like they're all doing a stunt. And then we're driving through like North Carolina and Aaron calls and he's like, hey, Bob, I'm at the hardware store. Which trash can should I buy for Chad to jump in? And I was like, just talk to Chad. I'm driving. And Chad's like, I don't get those Trooper, whatever they're called. Those big, whatever it was, the brand. Um, and he's like, he pointed out that he's like, well, I never said I would jump in a trash can. You know, I'm kind of moved past that now. I got a kid now, you know, and it was like 7 or 8 years prior that he did that. And I think he felt whatever. I'm not judging his statement on art that the trash can was, but I think he felt he had made that statement, right? And so it was sort of backpedaling to go back to that. And also
Right.
he didn't really want to hurt himself. But I also think that he he wanted to make it uncomfortable for Aaron, you know, because Chad does that too. He finds humor in creating sort of a
It's very
almost
like
harmlessly
reminiscent of like an
uncomfortable
Andy
situation.
Kaufman routine in that way,
Totally,
right?
totally. You know, he'll make you uncomfortable for humor, but it's not the stakes aren't high. You know, nobody's
Right.
in danger. It's just like weirdness for uncomfortable humor sake. So he's telling me the whole time, he's like, I never said I was gonna do that. He's asking Aaron, he's like, well, what if I do like a sex act in because Chad's known for having sex with everything. Well, if it's got a form of a female, presumably he's a straight white guy, but he seemed if you're a female willing to meet him in a bathroom, he's already in that bathroom. He knows which ones are the good ones for oral sex or regular sex or whatever. And some people sought him out because of his willingness to just go for it and the size of his sex organs. So he had plenty of bathroom action. So he's offering a sex act, which was probably more dangerous to rerun than a stunt, a physical stunt, just because of the nature of the
Yeah, but
puritanical laws or whatever, perhaps.
sure. But I cannot. I mean, honestly, I think I'm not the only one who looks back at it like I don't know. I obviously was part of some number of people who encouraged this thing. I feel
How
like
did you vote? Did you vote for him because Chad put it to a vote because
I don't remember
he was
that.
because
That's we're
this is
talking.
his
What year
MO.
would this have been?
This is 2010.
2010. Okay, so we're
Yeah.
talking about 15 years ago. Okay, so
Yeah,
I don't.
15 years ago in the fall of
Right,
2010. So
right.
yeah. But he does this. So this is part of his thing. He likes uncomfortable humor. He likes all kinds of humor,
Yeah,
but he really likes uncomfortable humor. So
right.
he makes his pitch to the audience, and it's in the series too. I shorten it, but it's in the series on Odyssey. He's like, I've done this a long time. I don't have insurance. I got kids now. Like, I feel like this is like going back and it's not like moving forward, but I'll put it to a
Yeah.
vote. I'll let you guys vote. And I guess there were 30 people in the room and it straight up came down to a 15-15 vote. And he would isolate every person just to make them uncomfortable. You vote. What's your vote? What's your vote? What's your vote? And then I didn't vote. And so he's like, well, it's a tie, Bob. You have the tiebreaker vote. And I'm like, Chad, you're my friend. If you don't want to do it, then I'm going to vote no. And he wanted to do it. He wanted to be made to do it,
I
but
see.
he wasn't showing his cards. Like in hindsight, we had a lot of time to talk about it. Obviously, we were like 2 weeks into that. There were two tours. They were both 5.5 weeks long. So we were 2 weeks into that one. So we had 3.5 more weeks on the road. And um, prior to getting to New York City, Chad relayed this story about Frank Zappa that I hadn't heard, but I'll take him at his word. And it basically was, and I don't know if it's accurate or not, but the story was that he told me was that Frank Zappa was contractually obligated to take this to be on stage for an hour at some performance, and for whatever reason he didn't want to do it. I don't know why that was,
Mhm.
but so according to the story Chad told me, the band started playing. The crowd was like, "Yay, all right!" And they wheeled out a coffin, and the crowd was like, "Woo, neat, a coffin!" And then the band kept playing, and they kept playing, and everyone's like, "Okay, what's happening here?" And then exactly 1 hour in, the coffin opens up, and Zappa pops up and goes, "Thank you, good night." And so contractually, he was on stage for an
He
hour. And so Chad telling me that story driving into New York, I was like, "Oh, okay." So he kind of wants to do it, but he kind of wants to be forced to do it. And we still didn't
mm,
know what the it was, but I had a feeling he was going to do something. He was going to make it awkward. That he was going to do something. So at the end of the vote, we didn't know that the cinema was up 2 flights of metal stairs, on like a the third story or mezzanine or whatever you call
I
it.
think it was actually just one long flight up.
Well, yeah, I think you're right. It was. I thought there was a landing in the middle, but maybe there wasn't. But it was a big flight of
It's been a
loud metal
while.
stairs.
Yeah.
And so he has the trash can. He does the vote, and then I told him I'm not going to vote. And so he's like, "Well, let's do it. Let's go." And he just goes and puts the trash can at the top of the stairs, goes in head first, and just clangs down those stairs loud as all get out.
Yeah,
Like
right.
it was just so spectacularly loud. And then he lands at the bottom, and some people are like, "Woo!" and others are like, "Oh no, is he hurt?" And then, as you recall, you were there.
I do remember every minute of it now. Yeah.
It was a lot of minutes. So I think it was like 38 minutes. He laid in that trash can, stone cold, still like a dead person. To the point, so I'm filming him, and I'm thinking, he told me that Frank Zappa story. Is this Chad's time in the coffin? And even if he planned for it to be, there's a chance that it went wrong on that tumble. It looked pretty bad. And even if he means to be faking an injury, he could legit have an injury, like there's no way to tell. So Michael Galinsky, the filmmaker, was there. He had to bail.
My buddy.
He was like, "This is too much."
Forgot about that. That's right.
Yeah.
He was there.
I love Galinsky. He's great. And
Yeah,
Steve
he's the
Bloom,
best.
the former publisher of High Times magazine, who runs Celeb Stoner, was there. He was like, "Nope, too much." Everyone was like, "Oh no, don't need to witness the death."
I vaguely remember there was a cop there.
Oh yeah, there was more than cops. So a few funny things along the way. So he's laying there, and I'm like,
let's just draw the picture. It's still inside this building in the restaurant.
Yeah, and the restaurant serves
the micro cinema is
on
in the back room of a restaurant and bar, and then there's a stairwell, a very wide staircase that kind of runs down right to the main entrance, right out to the Dumbo Street, J Street, or whatever this off High Street. I can't remember which street it is, but anyway, yeah, go ahead. So he's at the bottom of the stairs,
just to
right?
Just to flesh that picture out you painted. Yeah. The restaurant served like pheasant and filet mignon and like super expensive. Like it was a fancy ass place, which was weird that they had a sort of a rowdy micro cinema in this like highfalutin, like you got 5 forks and 10 spoons kind of joint, like, and for Chad to
but it wasn't.
I don't know that it was like bow tie kind of stuff, but
no. It was not. It was like a trendy place,
But they offered us a free meal, and I ordered pheasant, I think, and something
May as
else.
well.
And Chad, right? And then Chad was like, "You're just gonna eat the pheasant?" I'm like, "Chad, we're probably not making any money here. You might as well eat the best thing you can get." And he's like, "Oh yeah, right, okay, I'll take a filet mignon. I don't know how to cook it, but I'll take one, sure." And so, so it gets, and it was loud as like, it sounded like you just drove a truck full of cymbals off a cliff, like it was so loud.
Yeah.
And he lays there, and Aaron Hillis is sweating it. He's on the phone with his boss, and he's like, "I'm gonna get fired. I'm gonna get fired." And then a lot of people bail, and after about 20 minutes, I crawl into the trash can and I like poke my finger on Chad's eyeball. His eyes are open, and I literally like touch the white of his eye, like boink, 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 boink. Chad. Okay, it's real funny. They've called the cop. The ambulance are on the way. So like, if this is a joke, cool.
Yeah,
good job. But if you're really hurt, I don't know. So I get back out. I still don't know. I'm hoping that he's pranking. Fire marshal shows up with the fire truck, ambulance, and the cops show up. And then as soon as they do, Chad just pops up and is like, "Cool, hey everybody, let's get a beer." And I remember you sent me your footage too, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
There's a couple shots in the series because you were filming stuff there, and I love your line in there that Chad's talking about. I guess he feels like the people who voted for him to do that stunt deserved all that stress that they received from thinking he was injured.
Sure.
And so he was like, "Yeah, who got the last word now?" And you're like, "Yeah, you really showed him, Chad." And the way you said it, your delivery was so good. I was like,
I have no memory of that.
No, it was great. It's like, you fucking asshole. And then
I cannot. I could not. Well, I mean, only so far as maybe that you were freaked out that I would have thought and it's sort of a quasi asshole move. On the other hand, but I can't really even recall what I was thinking too much, except that I was like legitimately worried about this and probably
Yeah.
freaking out that I was like one of these people that probably voted for him to do that. Just ridiculous in hindsight, like,
It was great though. It was brilliant of Chad to do that. Like he put his neck out for it, quite literally. And like
right,
we like Aaron and I, we swapped that story whenever we cross paths at South by Southwest or whatever, because it's like it's such a good story. So that's the kind of life he led, which is
yeah,
why I made a documentary about him, is because he'll
yeah,
do things for the story.
yeah, right,
It's great.
yeah. Um, it's amazing.
I will say this too about New York. So we had some some gal that he had a relationship with of some nature. Um, Her ex, I think, was an executive at IFC. And so as we're driving through North Carolina at the same time. We're like a day out, 2 days out.
Hmm.
And Chad's like, hey man, one of my girlfriends, she's got like a connection at IFC. She can get us a pitch if we want to pitch on Monday. And this is like Thursday, right before our screening starts on Friday, or run. And we're like, so the New York Times is going to come out on Friday, and we don't know if it's going to be good or bad. It turned out to be good. It wasn't like perfectly good, but it was great. It was a
Right.
nice review. I liked it. It's got some great quotes in there, great pull quotes. And so we're like, sure, yeah, okay, all right, let's pitch something to IFC. So we spent the weekend cooking up this terrible idea that was like, first of all, in 2010, IFC was not the independent film channel. They were just IFC. And I don't know if it stood for something different, but they weren't independent film centric by then. They were comedy centric. They were just like trying to do a
Really?
comedy. Yeah, I think
Huh.
they have Portlandia. Was that an IFC show?
Um,
They had some comedy shows, and they referenced that one as either an example of their show or the types of show they were kind of looking for.
mhm.
Um, so we get into to pitch this harebrained idea, and we're feeling pretty good. Like we just had a big chunk of the film section of the New York Times, like talking about our movie with a picture of him in there. And so we're feeling pretty, like, all right, cool. We got
Yeah,
some swagger
sure.
going in here. Turns out not a single person in there seems to read the film section of the New York Times. So we're like trying to rifle through their papers and go, look, this is us, we're
Yeah,
legit.
right.
Give us a
Yeah.
show. But that went nowhere as expected. But like, take a shot. Why not?
Chad. And that was okay. So 2010. So when did he pass away?
So we film these tours, right? And then we get back to town, and then like he wants to film some more stuff. I'm going roundabouting it. Um, and there's a lawyer, criminal defense attorney named Adam Raposa, and he's in Total Badass as a criminal defense attorney. And he's another
Hmm.
person I've known for a long time. Real loudmouth, real loud. He's a
Right.
lawyer. He's a criminal defense lawyer. So that's good. He found an adversarial uh, uh, career for himself that's adversarial by
Hmm.
nature, and it should be,
Hmm.
because he's got the right personality for it. He's working for him. Chad's been arrested 22 times, so it's kind of funny that he's getting people out jail with, getting judges to sign papers and things. And all his arrests are like weed crime stuff, like not violent crime or sex crimes or any, kind of theft.
Hmm.
Um, and he's like, "Hey, come film me doing this." And I'm like, "No, dude, I don't do sequels. I'm an artist. It's beneath me." And I was just like, I just want to do something a little different. Not that I was tired of that. It's just, as a creative person, you kind of want to follow different creative passions. So I was like, take that same camera I gave you for Total Badass, where you film your penis all the time and yourself doing cocaine all the time, and film some stuff. And then he's like, uh, all right. So he did. And then he said, Adam Raposa has this giant monster truck that he wants to crash into a car and film it and scream, "I'm a lawyer," a bunch of times. Would you film that for $50? And I was like, yes, I will take $50. And I would very likely film that for free because it sounds so stupid, but I want the $50. So we get out there and we film it. And then Adam, who, in my opinion, and from seems to me, is like, I've known him for a long time, and he said as much. He's always wanted to be in one of my movies and stuff, and is kind of offended that I haven't put him in one. So he's pining for camera time, I guess. And I was like, he said, "I want to make a commercial." I'm like, "Oh fuck, I didn't agree to make a commercial, dude." I was like, "Okay, well, I like the screaming, the lawyer, the truck crash. I like it. We need more of those." So we kind of hashed it out, workshopped it real quick.
Hmm.
And he crashes his truck into Chad, who's in a car shirtless, like a bad guy on TV show Cops,
Right.
and it went kind of viral, like 500,000 viral, kind of viral. But it caught the
Wow.
attention of some people it's supremely stupid. I intended to make it in a sea of terrible lawyer commercials. I was like, can we make the worst one ever? And that was the goal. And I think we came pretty damn close, frankly. So that Chad the whole time was like, let's make another documentary. It'll be me as a legal assistant. Adam could be in it too, all obnoxious and crazy. And I'm just like, dragging my feet. And so we start filming, and we're filming a little things like just in case we pull the trigger and go for it. And then we did that little, it's called Lawyer Patriot Champion. We did that little commercial thing, which is not technically a commercial. It just reads like one. And then some Hollywood people from Country Music Television and Spike TV and E, they came out 3 times to try to make a pilot out of him. But the whole time I'm like, dude, we have connections. Like if we want to be in control of what we do, let's do it ourselves, and let's utilize this quasi celebrity we've achieved through this commercial that we free made to make our own little sizzle and pitch it. And Adam was so enamored with the dude that came out because he had a boat and a big house and stuff and had money, and Adam was like signed a deal with him and kind of screwed over me and Chad. And so we were still Chad and they were still friends and stuff, but we felt kind of betrayed. And so I was already filming kind of half-assed, and I was like, well, now I'm filming all this stuff, and we're going to film this whole story of like, I equate it to in a way where a band breaks and then the label comes in and says, all we need is a singer, and they just take the singer out, not knowing that the songwriter's the bass player or whatever. They're just like, eh. And so they just wanted Adam. They plucked Adam, and then so we're filming like them trying to make reality shows, and like one of the guys from LA that came out to film, who's like kind of big time, he gave me a speech that was effectively, if you keep filming us, you'll never work in this town again. And I'm like, you're in Austin, right? For 2 things. One, I barely work in Austin. I certainly don't work out of Los Angeles. But like you'll never work in this town threat again is like a little toothless. But also you're here because of the shit I did, dude. Like don't be a dick about it. So we're filming all that, and then Adam, this is my own opinion too. Adam is such a he thinks he knows best of everything, and as a criminal defense attorney, good for that. But I don't think he necessarily knows best about storytelling and about on-camera presence and about putting a story together in this form. And so he kind of bulldozed all the reality shows and wanted to do it like with this character that he created, and it felt so, even just observing it felt just really artificial to me. And they didn't go anywhere. But by then we're filming everything, and then Chad gets a diagnosis that he's got colorectal cancer, and we're still filming all this stuff. And he's got a little pocket camera, he's filming stuff too. And he went through 1 round of chemo, but before that, backing up, no pun intended, on the tours, like, often when you travel and your poop schedule can get kind of messed up, so that's normal. But looking in hindsight, no pun intended, he was like worried about where to poop on the tour a lot. And it could have been just this thing called traveler's constipation, which just makes you not poop your regular schedule. Or maybe it could have been colorectal cancer that was already starting to take root. But Chad's the kind of guy that you're like, how long have you had that car, Chad? He's like, 10 years. I was like, cool. When did you get your last oil change? He's like, what do you mean? You got to change the oil in your car, Chad. He's like, why? So there's no preventative maintenance on himself or things in his orbit. So I'm not surprised it got as bad as it did, as quickly as it did. But he did a round of chemo. He didn't like it. He did a round of radiation. They irradiated his butthole off. Like he had no butthole anymore. And at that point, it gets a little graphic. Yeah, it's like, and so he's like, now he's got a colostomy bag. And
oh my gosh.
And his favorite things are getting high or like taking Valium, like getting slow and dopey, never heroin or anything, but like getting real high all the time. And he'd like kind of downer pills. And so they gave him a lot of pain meds. So he was like, well, that part's cool. And then he's like, and then I guess the tumor put some pressure on his prostate. And so they gave him some boner pills. And he's like, well, they gave me boner pills and pain pills, so I guess I'll be okay for a while. And he's still out, fucking everything that is willing to get down with him. And then after that first round of chemo, he was just like, it's not worth it. I think he was stage
Really?
4 and had been stage 4. So he decided not to do a second round of chemo, and he died in 2019, passed away at home. Um, and he was a really dear friend. He was easily top 3 best lifelong friends. Like, I have a wife, she'd be number 1. I have a best friend since elementary school, but different points, different people are closer to
Of
you. And Chad
course.
and I were
Right.
super close, and we were creatively pushing each other and engaging each other in our
Yeah.
art and stuff. And like, he's such a wonderful storyteller that it was a shame, as Lars Nilsson says, who runs the AFS, Austin Film Society stuff. He's like, Chad was supposed to be that guy that got old and wrote just great memoirs and stories and things, when he slowed down because of his physical chaos, and it was hard when he died. Um, and that movie that we were doing together with the lawyer too, and the reality show stuff, like, it's a sort of on again, off again project. Adam is a little exhausting, the lawyer, to be around, even on video. It's a little exhausting, and so it's a project that isn't funded by anyone else, so I'm not obligated to anybody else's schedule. So it's something that I over the last 10 years I've been coming to it and editing it for like 3 or 4 months, and then getting real into it, and then for whatever reason getting side swiped by a different project or a life event or
Hmm.
whatever, and I abandoned it for like a year. And then last year I was back in editing it, a year and a half ago roughly, and I needed a scene that showed mine and Chad's creative relationship and creative history. And I didn't really want to do one of those sort of historical montage things of like, here's our history together. So I started looking at the tour footage, which we shot in 2010. And I was like, I'll make a scene out of that. I'll make a scene out of the tour footage. Now, the tour footage, and I'm going to loop back around because this is how I talk,
Yeah. Yeah.
but the tour footage was, I booked that tour. It was, and if I forget, please remind me where I left off about Chad's death, because it was cutting
Yes.
together the odd Odyssey that was the final emotional beat of my journey on Chad's death. Not probably not the final, the biggest one. But so I was editing that, and I was enjoying spending time. It was footage of Chad, me, Chad, and Adam, and others, but primarily me, Chad, and Adam. Primarily Chad, because he's more embraceable as a persona on screen. and and I was enjoying spending time with him, even though it was like a ghost version of him, because it was footage that we shot. A lot of it I hadn't seen yet, so I was like, it was nice and comforting, and I enjoyed that time. And so I needed the something for the history, so the tour journal stuff. So the tour journal. So I booked that whole tour. I promoted that whole tour. It was just by myself. It was insane. We had over 30, I think we had 30 screenings on each tour, so 60 different venues, and then I had to promote it, and I have to hit up radio stations, hit up magazines, hit up alternative weeklies, websites, whatever. 2010, it's a little different landscape, and so it's an insane amount of work, an insane amount of work. And I was like, Chad, let's keep you're a writer, everybody loves your writing, and we're gonna have some probably crazy stories. Let's keep a tour journal. We'll update it daily. We'll film with little pocket cameras the
Hmm.
thing, and we'll plug them in. We'll have writing, and then it'll just be a plug-in raw video. We're not going to edit on the road. I'm not going to do that in 2010. That sounds like a nightmare. But we're just going to plug in the raw footage. So it'll be text plug in. But we need to keep it daily, and it'll build some momentum, and people will be on for the ride, and they'll be like, "Oh man, I just read this today, and tomorrow they're going to be in our town." Hopefully, that was the plan. But the brain in Chad, his penis is probably so big because his brain lives in it. That's probably what really happened.
Probably.
Something in
Yeah.
utero happened there, where his brain just shifted downward. But he spent all his time. I drove every inch for a couple reasons. I didn't want to get pulled over. We had a
Right.
lot of weed and pills in the car, and we're driving a Prius with tinted windows, so it's effectively a cloaking device. You can't see in there. And in 2010, Priuses were like, like known as slow, peaceful hippie cars or whatever. Not even hippies, but just like, because they
Hmm.
weren't that cheap either. Even though I got mine used for very cheap. Um, but it kept us protected as long as you didn't see us, right? We had tinted windows. So, but nevertheless, I didn't trust his driving, and so I drove everything. And so, but he's supposed to be writing, and instead of writing, he's on OkCupid, which was the only website the dating site. I guess it was an early one. And just trying to find women to hook up with in the next town, which he found plenty. But like, so
Mm.
all his time was spent there. So consequently, the tour footage never was posted. A couple were, but there was nothing to post it with, and it didn't make sense in a vacuum.
Hmm.
And it wasn't filmed in a way to where if I were filming it for a standalone documentary or a short documentary or whatever, another piece, I would film other things. I would film, maybe just like generically speaking, establishing shots or, shots to orient yourself or reaction shots or, some B-roll, I would
Hmm.
shoot other ways, but instead it's just like what you call selfies now, but they weren't really a thing back then. But you just hold the camera and you talk into the camera and you show the world. And so that kind of annoyed me because I did all the work and all I needed from him was some writing. But uh, nevertheless, so we get back, we're filming stuff, we're filming the reality show stuff, and I'm cutting it together. We're done filming. Chad's died in 2019. He passed. And I'm like, well, you know what I could use to represent mine and Chad's creative history is I could use some of the tour journal footage. It'll be fresh. It'll be something I've not seen. I've never really watched any of that. I'll cut it together. It'll be, an interesting way to show that he and I came into this reality show thing as a creative team. And then, Adam joined the team, and then Adam separated himself from the team to follow the money. And so I started cutting that together. And again, it was just like, it was so fun. Like I was just grinning and grinning and grinning, just hanging out. It was like footage of us hanging out and driving and doing stuff. And there's some funny stuff. Like we get arrested, he's sneaking into New York Jets football games and Seattle Mariners games. And he's like eating leftover food because we don't have any money. He's just like, it's just like, it's funny. It's like low stakes, just like stonery comedy. The whole tour was, and
Yep.
the tour journal ends up being that. So I cut it together to try to represent something in this other doc, which still isn't done, and who knows if it'll ever get done. But while I'm doing that, I'm like, oh, I should make a series out of this. And so I just started cutting them in. I'd never done a series, but it was kind of liberating to not have to be constrained to the sort of story arcs of a traditional, say, 90-minute movie,
Hmm.
where there are sort of expectations of, tension and release that, you don't have to hit them, but people are accustomed to them. And to do it in a different format of like just little chaptery things that I really wasn't as concerned that these added up to a bigger experience because it was more like a travelogue. It
Right.
wasn't
Yep.
like a life
Yeah.
quest, it was just like a spending time kind of thing. But when I cut together, so we have a homecoming screening from our second tour from both tours, but uh, we're on stage and talking about we just got arrested 2 days before that, and so he's telling about the arrest, and it was for weed shit too, of course. And then we're both just on the stage, just like talking about how it was the time of our lives, and how we loved each other and we hug each other, and watching that raw footage. I lost it, dude. I
Hmm.
seriously, I was just ugly crying so hard. And I hadn't cried since he passed, I kind of been trying to tough it out, I guess. And this was like 2 years. Yeah, this is like 20, this, he died in 2019. So this was 2023, I think,
Oh, wow.
and I didn't realize I had all that in me
Yeah.
unprocessed, but I did. And it felt good. And I was just like,
Yeah.
I was like, trying to squeeze more tears out, just like cry hard, man. Just go for it. Just bawl your eyes out, man. Just trying to let it all out. But once I got past that sort of painful moment, I mean, I don't know if it was painful, whatever you want to call that, emotional moment, and it was necessary. I needed to do that, and I'm glad I did that. But uh, now that I've moved, it doesn't crush me when I see that scene as it did the first time. But
Mm.
it's just a fun time, spending time with a couple weirdos. If you like, just a couple low stakes, like dryish humor weirdos cracking jokes and smoking weed and traveling around and looking at weird shit, then you might dig it as a series.
Wow. Did Chad, what was his relationship like with his son toward the end there?
So it's interesting in the movie, Chad, the first thing he does with the camera, again, his little flip camera, got it around here somewhere, tiny little pocket camera. Before, like, we didn't have these kind of cell phones. I had a flip phone, and I paid extra money for some sort of wireless thing through my. It was a flip phone. It was like an
Yeah.
old red flip phone thing, and I paid for so we could have computer access on some interstates, not even great access, but we could have some kind of mobile access. So I don't even know why I got distracted on that, but he's filming so that no phones weren't a thing. These kind of phones weren't a thing. So we had to film with these little cameras. And the first thing he does, of course, since in the movies, he points to himself and he goes, "Well, hey, Bob gave me this piece of shit, so I guess I'm in charge of the movie now." And then the second thing he does, he goes, "There's my penis," and he films his penis because, of course, he's very happy about it. But the scene where he introduces his son, he thought it was funny, and I thought it was funny because we both knew it wasn't true. But I don't know if the audience knows it's not true. And so what he does is he turns the camera and he goes, "Hey, I'm at a high school football game," and he turns the camera to Shay, his son, who's maybe 14 at the time. And he says, "This is my son Shay. He only gets to see me on weekends, and I drag him to these football games." So it sort of plays like, you know, well, what kind of dad is that? Who, you don't even get your kid 2 days a week, and you're dragging him to a football games, and does he like it? And so he doesn't indicate whether he likes it or not. They loved going to football games. They had a great time, and Chad just thought it was funny to play it that way, and I played it that way too. But after you watch a movie 100 times, you're like, maybe that doesn't read like he's joking. Like we know he's joking, but did they know he's joking? But so Shay, Chad has to the mortgage crisis happens. Chad has to sort of change his lifestyle from jumping off stages and selling weed everywhere, or he's confronted with this because he now has to take Shay into his house and get him to school because Shay's mother, her home was foreclosed upon, or something happened where in that whole mortgage crisis thing happened, and she didn't have anywhere to house all of them in an adequate way. And so Chad, to his credit, made that pivot, and still maintained his street cred and his rowdy, crazy nature, and drove his kid and made him sandwiches every day. And they had a really great relationship. I think it was pretty solid before that. It just got even more so because of proximity. Moved him in there, and Chad would do this thing he called football karaoke, where because he loves football. He just goes crazy for it, and so he would do his own announcing. He would live play-by-play call and have a color commentator. I don't know if he was probably more color for NFL games, and we had a pirate radio station here in town. He would do it over the radio, and Shay started doing that. And then Shay actually, after Chad died, Shay kept it going too. So like he was into it, But I spoke to Shay a few years back, and so the movie was well out, and he's a full ass adult now. And I asked him if what he thought of the movie. He's like, "I never saw the movie," and I was like, "Oh, interesting." I mean, that's totally up to him. If I had a movie filmed about me and my dad and his penis when I was 14, I don't know how anxious I'd be to see that either. And Chad talks about that when he's asked during Q&As that's on the tour. Your parents seen it? What do they think of it? They think it's okay. If your kid's seen it, no, I don't. I think they think it'd be weird to see their dad's penis, and I think it'd be weird. So So I sent Shay. We set up this screening here that's coming up on October 4th, the 15-year anniversary screening. And I still don't know if Shay has seen it because I don't really bump into him just out in the world much. And I sent him a text and I was like, "Hey Shay, you're totally invited if you want to come." And I didn't ask him if he'd seen it, but he wrote back that he wasn't going to come, and not in a hostile way, in a very friendly way. He said friendly stuff. He's just like, "Hey, great to hear from you. I'm not going to go, but I hope everything goes well." And it did make me wonder. I was like, "Oh, has he still not seen it?" I mean, that's his choice and his right if he wants to, and also if he hadn't, you got to relive not only your awkward adolescence, but your dad, there he is, the one that you lost, so
I understand. Yeah.
But I thought it'd be interesting if he were interested, if he wanted to talk about in a way that Chad did, like what it's like to see himself on the screen and how he feels his portrayal was, but I'm not going to pressure him to do that, obviously. The choice is for him.
It's quite an epic story,
He's an interesting dude. The funny thing is, like, all the crazy stuff he does, he used to sell weed openly in the 90s. He would print up flyers with his address on it, and I lived in the apartment next door, and I actually was selling weed too, just like quarter bags and stuff. I'd buy ounces, and he'd print up flyers with his picture and his address on it. Says, "I sell weed." And so he just lived a crazy life, and he would go this was when weed was hardcore illegal in Texas.
Yeah, sure.
It doesn't seem that crazy now, but back then it was a pretty crazy deal. And so of all the crazy things he does and all his stories about sex and his penis and, just like crazy things, the thing that made me want to put a camera on him, there's a couple things, but one was he was raising guinea pigs
Right.
for show competitions, like a dog show. And I just thought that was the funniest thing ever. First of all, like there's like a whole culture of that, I'm sure, which we didn't get into, but just the fact that Chad's, I say this lovingly, kind of a dirtbag in a way. And I don't mean like he's a predator or he's a thief, but he's just like, like underbelly dude, happy
Right.
underbelly dude. And he's over here with 14-year-old teenagers from the future farmers of America with their groomed guinea pigs, and Chad's winning contest, by day guinea pig contest winner, by night total deviant. That just tickled me. And so I was like, Chad, and also I came off another documentary called Hell on Wheels about the group of women that
Yes.
revived the
Remember
sport of
it.
roller derby. And that was great, but it was like 60 people that's broke into factions, and it was so unwieldy. And it was me and this other guy named Werner who was the producer on it. It was just a 2-person show, and then it
Mhm.
became 2 different leagues, and it was so just sprawling. And then the distillation process of redundant characters and trying to be truthful to the people who have to live a life with the artifact you've created in existence. They have to continue living, and so I felt the obligation to them was vital also, that it
Mhm.
has to be truthful to them as well of what they represent. And so the idea of filming a documentary about one person was quite appealing. And I was like, Chad will deliver. I know that. We can make this weird character piece that it doesn't matter, in my opinion, if you've heard of him and you live in Seattle or you live in Santa Fe or you live in Philadelphia. You may not have heard of him. But if you grew up in any kind of art culture, counterculture scene, someone like him,
Yep.
and like this
Yep.
is a way, if you're interested, that you can kind of get close and sort of by proximity, sort of observe their life without actually getting dirty yourself or getting endangered yourself. And it's, of course, was Chad's fault that we got arrested because there's a danger of just being around people like this. But there's also a hell of a lot of fun to be had.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Okay, so let's remind people then about the screening. Um, and is it just
So
a single screening, or is it going to be?
yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah. So this is just a single screening. We're gonna do a Q&A thing. So
Yeah.
it's at Hyper Real Film Club in East
Mm-hmm.
Austin. They're on 3rd and Chicon, and it's a
October
really cool
4th.
place. October 4th at 7 o'clock with
Right.
the screening starts at 7:30, and I would advise people to go check this joint out. Like they're a lot of fun. They do a
And
lot
what
of cool
about? Tell
stuff.
me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, go for it.
But who are going to be at the? You're going to have some Q&As. All right.
Yeah,
Well,
so
at this screening there'll be a Q&A.
yeah, so I'm doing a Q&A there, and a lot of people who are in the movie will be there, and
Wow.
so I'm probably going to drag a few of those people that love the spotlight anyway. Um, Adam being one, probably Jesse Miller's in the movie, and Will. There's people that are in the movie that are characters themselves, and so I imagine it'll kind of turn into just a Chad celebration,
Right. That's nice.
and that's going to be great. Like
Yeah. Totally.
I was wondering this too, just like he died right before he died in so what is it? It's September now, so like July of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, even if he were healthy, I'm like, I wonder how COVID would have hit him. He would have
Mm-hmm.
hated it so much. Not that
Oh
he's
my
like a
God.
libertarian, but just because
Of course.
the,
Right.
the social part of his life is a huge component of his life,
Oh
and that would have,
yeah. Yeah. No.
and let
Totally.
alone if he were still sick when COVID, that would have killed him. That would have
Yeah.
done it.
Right.
But we're gonna celebrate him there too. And hopefully just have a party of it. But we're also kind of using it to launch the
Odd
Odyssey series.
Odyssey. Right.
And it's been online for a little bit, but I hadn't really put it in one singular place where people can go. And so they can go to my website, which is crashcamfilms.com/odd odyssey. And it's crash cam like a crash camera, not like a trash can. Apparently it sounds like
Right.
trash can when I say it out loud over the phone. But and you can find it if you just search for like Bob Ray Odd Odyssey or whatever. And it's
Right.
15 episodes. The total runtime's like 2 hours. I think the longest one's like 9 minutes and the shortest one's like 4. It's just fun little. It's. I hope it's appealing in a way that, like, if you're interested in getting sort of for a filmmaker's point of view, like the cinema landscape of 2010, what two, DIY low budget filmmakers are doing on the road and how it goes for them. Like if there's any if filmmaker interest from that angle, I would think there is, or just the sort of funny, uh, sort of I say like low key or low stakes because it's not like we're saving the earth or anything. We're just having a good time, checking stuff out, giggling along, and it feels like I want it to feel like you're hanging out with a couple friends of yours. If you enjoy these kinds of people, then I think you'll have a good time on the ride.
Well, I'm so glad that I met you when I did, and that the story continues. Like
Yeah,
and our paths have managed to converge again.
right.
And I really haven't been down I haven't been down to Austin in a number of years now.
I
So
haven't been up to New York either in a bit.
yeah, well, and I haven't been down to
You're up
North as
there.
much,
Yeah, yeah.
but
But also, when you come here, holler at me because we're doing the Q&A, and I don't know how this really applies, but in regards to Q&As, um, I've screened a few films at South by Southwest and two features and some music videos. And when I submitted Total Badass to them in 2010 for the 2010 festival, they didn't want to screen it, or they chose not to. And at first, the word was that I was on the bubble, that I was maybe going to screen there. And I was like, okay, cool. And then I think a Eli Roth movie dropped out, which granted, he does like horror stuff. So like mine's not a swap for swap, but I was like, oh, cool. A movie dropped out. I'm on the bubble. This is my end. And I asked them, they're like, nah. And so I was like, huh. Uh, and so you start to question, you're like, was this movie not very good? But the reviews we got were pretty damn good, and it's a
turns
counterculture
out,
movie. It's not gonna
yeah,
it's not gonna please everybody, and if it pleased everybody, I would probably consider that a failure. But one part of the movie is during the movie, Chad's on felony probation, and the
right.
reason, and it's important to the movie because he's so used to smoking weed all day long, and he's got to take piss tests, and so he starts doing cocaine, which is not a
Mhm.
swap for me of weed, like I want to get high, I'll do a rail. That doesn't make any sense. But coke leaves your system quickly, so he could still party, I guess. And
Really?
he's never
Okay.
really a coke dude. And then as soon as his probation ended, he quit doing coke. So for like a couple of years, he was doing coke like a maniac. And then not a lot of people can quit that easily. Managed to, so kudos. But you needed to know why he was on felony probation for the movie. So in the movie, we explain why he's on felony probation. It's kind of a footnote. It's not really integral to the story. It's just why he's got an ankle monitor and why he's at risk of going back to jail. It's the threat of reincarceration. The reason he was on felony probation is because he bootlegged the South by Southwest wristbands and was going around selling them for $10 each. So he wasn't even
Wow.
really making money.
Wow.
But so that's in there. South by threw the book at him,
That's
which
it.
they probably needed to make an example out of
Well,
him.
what great publicity though to then to program it.
I thought that would have been such a funny sort of, like we're not
Yeah.
holding a grudge. It's a thing that happened. We've taken security measures since. Now we have microchips in there and we scan them or whatever. And maybe they're bad. I don't know. But I was like, is that why they show it? Um, but and I
It
love
would
South by
probably make
Southwest.
sense.
Right. But so once we started screening, I was like, at that point, I was like, well, I'm just gonna. I did a tour of a movie of mine in 1999, 2001, because we left 2 days after 9/11, which was insane because the whole world just locked down for a while. It was a weird time to be driving around screening movies. So I did one for my first feature. So I was like, I'll just do that again. Just do that. 10 years later, we'll do it again. We'll just do it ourselves. Screw you. We'll show you. Yeah, we'll show you that we got a real movie. And so we did. And I love South by Southwest. I don't hold a grudge on them. Like they made their decisions based on whatever factors that they have, and I don't know what they are, so I can't really be mad about it. Um, but consequently, I want to attend South by Southwest, and I don't. They're not going to show everything I send them, as they shouldn't. I mean, no festival shows everything everybody sends them. But how can I get a badge? I don't have the money for a badge. So whenever I ask them what I can do in exchange for a badge, if there's anything I can do, and they've had
Right,
me
right, of
be
course.
different. And they do this for a lot of people in the cinema world, whether you're a critic or a programmer or a filmmaker or whatever. Is they'll have you sit on a panel and you get a badge, or they'll have you be a juror. And so I did many of those things. But about 4 years ago, they asked if I would be interested in joining the alumni crew that introduces movies and moderates Q&As. and I've easily done over 100 of my own Q&As just by myself.
Right.
And I feel like there's a
You're on the A
responsibility.
side in those.
Thank you. I take it seriously. I try to be funny. I
Yeah,
try to
yeah,
be
yeah. You want to
falsely
engage the
modest and
audience.
stuff. I
Yeah.
try to encourage them to ask questions, and I try to set it up so they feel comfortable doing so. I try
What
to.
I meant though was that you were usually on the A side, right? The Q&A, you're on the A side.
Oh,
That's what
no,
I
I'm
meant.
usually, yeah, typically, yeah.
Now you're
I
like
thought you were
now being
grading
a.
me like a A plus, and I was
Oh,
like,
I do. I
thank you,
know
Mr.
that's
Sharp.
what you thought I meant after a few seconds, and I can definitely rate you as an A plus for sure.
I love doing them, and what I discovered is, yeah, usually I'm on the
You are a
answer
natural,
section.
absolutely.
I love being on the Q side of things too, because I just
Yeah,
love talking about the human condition. I love
yeah,
talking about our art and our craft. And maybe this is something that rubbed off from Chad on me is that he would, when he was talking about his writing, he would say, when I had an idea and I wondered if I should write that idea or if it was too dangerous, I knew I had to write it. I
hmm
had to do that. If it scared me, I had to do it. And so quite often when at at South by, you don't get to watch the movies in advance as the moderator. So you're watching it. You're having this communal experience with a bunch of people in a room who've all come together to share this ride and to go on an emotional journey and then to discuss it afterwards. And I usually say something to that effect, just to like, we're in this together, everybody, you know. And so, but as the moderator, you're like, I'm trying to consume the movie. I'm trying to let it affect me in a way that movies should, without too much front of brain criticism happening. But I'm also trying to think of things to talk about.
right.
And almost every screening, there's a question that I go, I'd really like to ask this, but should I? Oh, maybe I shouldn't. And then I'm like, yeah, that means you should. And it's usually
Right.
it's usually nothing too. It's usually out of left field more so than like it's not obnoxious or
Controversial in particular.
problematic. Yeah, it's just kind of. I'm like, I'm sure no one in the audience is going to ask a question like this. So let's open up that door too.
Absolutely.
And I get a lot of positive feedback. So uh, whenever I'm a part of a Q&A, whether I'm doing the A's or the Q's, I'm just get real excited about it. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
like
No,
doing
I
them. I
still
like,
love doing it. And I work with the Woodstock Film Festival, and
yeah.
there's and it's coming up in like 3 weeks, for
Oh,
less than
hell
a
yeah.
month, less than a month. Yeah. So I'll be doing it, and it's really just a great opportunity. And some of those films I'll have seen. Some of them though, like you're saying, I will just be sitting there watching it with everybody, you know,
Yeah,
and you know, I've realized it's kind of like you're there for the audience, and it's
totally.
you know,
Well, you're facilitating a good time.
right,
You're representing the festival, so there's an obligation there. But you're also
sure,
you're a proxy for the audience in a way,
yep,
and you're also a
yep,
host for the filmmaker. So if
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
can, and often they're
Accomplish all those
younger
things,
filmmakers that, and not everyone's a public speaker, so you can kind of gauge that and kind of help them through whatever
right,
struggles they might have.
right,
But if everyone has a an interesting time and they get a chance to discuss emotions and they get to discuss, ask the questions that they want to ask and 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 we leave that room feeling like really fulfilled, then I feel really good about that. And I want that filmmaker to have a really good time, and I want that audience to have a really good time. And also I want to show off that I can be part of this too. There's some ego
yeah,
feeling there too
yeah, yeah.
for me, but I harness that for the
But you do
benefit of
know,
the group.
like, and you know, Bob, that is the Q&A, right? Even though I have all sorts of feelings about Q&As, that because they take place seconds after the credits roll, right, and the lights go on,
Yeah,
and nobody's
sometimes
had
during the
time.
credits,
Right, exactly. That's true too. And then, like, nobody's had a chance to process much yet, but we're still
hmm
going to do the Q&A because probably nobody can come back in an hour when you've
Yeah,
had a chance,
but
right? So,
some
but
movies really need that processing
oh,
time.
absolutely, of course. So that's another thing you kind of have to navigate. But
Yeah,
the ticket price that people are paying, right, for the South by screening or any film festival screening for that matter, that extra $10,
yeah,
that's the Q&A, that's the
yeah,
engaging with the filmmaker or whomever from the film shows up, right?
yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, there is a responsibility, as well in a way, to kind of really make that a memorable or just
Yeah.
enjoyable experience.
If you're gonna command their
Value add.
attention and time,
Yeah.
deliver. That's how I feel
Right.
about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what's interesting too is like, so Austin Film Festival, which they're coming up to, they saw me do some Q&As. The programmer for there saw me do some moderating at South by and invited me to do it at their festival. And I was like, oh, cool.
That's
All right.
yeah.
That's great. I love this.
Right.
I
I hope you got
I
it.
would
I hope
love
they
to.
at the very least gave you a badge.
They totally did.
Okay.
And less movies to do, which I was like, less work. But then I'm like, no, give me more. Give me like 20 movies to do. I'll do all these movies. This is great.
Careful, there might be other programmers listening, you know.
I'm willing to do it. I was like, if I can pivot to John Waters' personality, I would be okay with that.
All right. Well, you know, it's interesting. I was kind of planning in this conversation to also ask a little bit about your background, but I feel like, you know, this is we've approached kind of an organic moment here. And what I would like to do is to do a part 2 with you at some point, you know, maybe whenever in the next months or what have you, where we can just talk also, because I don't know a lot about your origin story, really. You know what I mean? We met just during that whole frenzy time we just talked about, and so I'd like to know more. So maybe we can just do a kind of like a prequel, you know.
That would be great. As you've certainly noticed, I have trouble shutting up, so I'd be happy to talk about everything.
That's what we call the perfect guest. That's not
right.
That's not a flaw. That's a strength.
I see it that way too. Just I don't think we're in the majority always.
I don't know. Being in the majority, as we may know, is sometimes
problematic.
Yeah, exactly. I'm happy to be in the minority.
I am too. Those are questions like, would you rather be weird or normal? Like, who would choose normal? Like, I don't know. I guess normal. Weird, you know. Like,
yeah, no. My kid is just started college, but I'll just say, I was thinking, you know, when you said normal, Abby Normal always comes to mind. I can't help thinking about it. So I showed him a couple of years ago during the pandemic, actually, during the lockdown. He was with me up here upstate, and for a period of time, like homeschooling, or not homeschooling. That's not what it's called. Remote learning, right?
And in your home though.
Yeah. And but I'm like, I've got him, right? So we're not going out very much. So let me show you some movies, you know? So so I showed a Young Frankenstein, and like Marty Feldman comes on the screen, you know, and my kid was probably had to been 16 or something. I don't know. He goes, "Who's that guy?" Like, it's so glad like he had that. I had that reaction, you know, when I saw it. And then he sent me a clip the other day, like about a week or two ago, and of from Young Frankenstein, and he said, we really should watch that again. I said,
that's a good one. Yeah.
I said, yeah, sure, but you know, he's in San Francisco going to college. But
that's probably, I mean, that's probably my favorite Mel Brooks movie.
Oh yeah, my favorite.
I mean, you don't really count Eraserhead because he just produced it, but still.
Oh, that's a good point. That's right. Oh my God, I forgot about that.
Right? Isn't that weird?
Yes, yeah, but you know, it was his production company, exactly. Anyway, this has been fantastic, and what a great way to. I just want to clarify one other thing. Hell on Wheels, which I totally remember you sending me. I watched it. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I remember. But did we? I don't know if we did a podcast on it, because
I don't believe we did.
You're saying this is your first time coming on.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm just thinking, why? I don't know. I'm not sure.
That was an interesting journey too. And the other thing too is like, so in Odyssey, like we keep it about Total Badass, but on that tour we did double screenings. We screened Hell on Wheels also.
Right.
And so there's only like one, and it wasn't really relevant to the Chad Bob thing that we were doing, that the Odyssey was there doing. Mm-hmm. But there's some roller derby people in it here and there.
Right.
But that movie, like, I was just honored to be part of like this movement that sort of spawned this greater thing, and it ebbs and flows as everything does with popularity.
It's another great documentary. That was such a good documentary.
It got really big, and then like I have a network I'm a derby gal, you know, I have a network of derby gals that I can connect with that are everywhere. So it feels wonderful to be part of that community as well.
Oh, I'm sure. That's really amazing. So there's lots more to talk about, was what we're saying here. So we have to, rise to that occasion eventually. So maybe sometime in the dead of winter, when I'm like desperate because I have to tell you something. I've been really slowed down on my own podcasting because I've been doing it for like practically 15 years also. And I'm just like, not not burnt out, but like, you just, there's like, you need to get re-energized,
Yeah,
but the idea
totally.
of bringing you on, it was like a natural. I'm like so glad we did this.
It's either that or you take a ton of Molly and go to a big rave.
Yeah,
That's
well,
how you
or I don't have to.
re-energize,
No, I could
right?
take the Molly and with my partner.
And then
She's
do
we
the interview.
we are on the yeah, no, she's very you got to meet her at some point, but
Yeah, Molly with your partner, I highly recommend it.
yes. Yeah, and it's happened quite a bit. You'll meet her one day, I hope. Anyway,
I hope so too.
thanks. All right. Well, okay. So let's. I hope this screening is a big hit, and we'll promote it from my end. That's for sure.
Hell yeah, thank you, man. It was really great catching up with you again too, or talking at you if nothing else.
Yeah.
It feels like catching up.
Likewise. All right. Have a good night, and congratulations on finally getting your Zoom cherry pop there.
Thanks so much, and thanks for having me on. It's a real pleasure to chat
Oh
with
yeah,
you, and I
so
appreciate
glad.
you being a trooper for the cinema scene.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, I appreciate that whenever I hear that, and glad to finally get Bob Ray on Filmwax. That's fantastic. Thank you.
All right, cheers.
All right, talk soon.
All right, later.
Bye-bye.